Hello, I'm Kimberly, and welcome to the weekend edition of the Nave News Update. It's Friday, May 9th, and many of the stories you hear here can be found at IndianCountryNews.com. And here's the news for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. From the time he was first arrested at the age of 14 for fishing near his home, Billy Frank Jr. has been a fierce and tireless champion for salmon, tribal sovereignty, and the right of Northwest tribes to fish in their traditional waters. Nearly 70 years of advocacy ended on May 5th when the Nisqually tribal elder passed away at the age of 83. President Barack Obama said in a statement that Billy never stopped fighting to make sure future generations would be able to enjoy the outdoors as he did, and his passion on the issue of climate change should serve as an inspiration to us all. Ernie Stevens Jr., chairman of the National Indian Gaming Association, called Billy one of his heroes and one of the most significant warriors in history. Frank served as the chairman of the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission since 1977. He was best known for his leadership in the 1974 Bolt decision. That ruling upheld tribal treaty rights and reestablished the tribes as co-managers of salmon in the rivers on which we live. In 1992, he was awarded the Albert Schweitzer Prize for Humanitarianism, whose winners include former President Jimmy Carter and Desmond Tutu. Billy never wavered in the defense of tribal sovereignty. Until his passing, he was still fighting for Indian country as chairman of the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission. Just last month, he testified before Congress on behalf of the Commission, fighting for full implementation of treaty fishing rights. In a new battlefront over energy policy, American Indian rights attorneys argued May 7th before a Minnesota judge that 10 treaties signed between 1825 and 1864 by Minnesota tribes gives them a say in where to build crude oil pipelines across land ceded by the Chippewa in the 19th century. Before the hearing, about 45 Honor the Earth supporters, led by the group's leader Winona LaDuke, demonstrated outside the Public Utilities Commission's office. The Native American nonprofit group Honor the Earth says the proposed $2.6 billion Sandpiper crude oil pipeline across northern Minnesota will produce inevitable oil spills and environmental degradation on ceded lands. Spills could endanger Rice Lake near McGregor and Sand Lake in Aiken County, where Native Americans gather wild rice. For the first time in Minnesota, Indian rights attorneys are arguing that the State Public Utilities Commission lacks unilateral authority to approve pipelines. They want the state to reject the proposed route of the Sandpiper pipeline from North Dakota and have offered an alternative path. Enridge Energy's preferred pipeline route goes northeast from Clearbrook, Minnesota, passing west of Park Rapids and then heading east to Superior, Wisconsin. It avoids reservations but passes through ceded lands in which Chippewa bands retain the right to fish, hunt, and gather rice. Judge Eric Lipman, who is overseeing the regulatory review of the pipeline, is expected to rule on the treaty rights question, but the final decision rests with the Public Utilities Commission. The issue ultimately could land in federal court. An advisory council that advocates on the behalf of Native American students in Oklahoma is continuing for another 6 years. Governor Mary Fallin recently signed into law a bill that renewed the Oklahoma Advisory Council on Indian Education. The council makes recommendations to the State Board of Education and the state superintendent about education issues affecting Native American students and also promotes education opportunities for those students. The council is comprised of representatives from tribes, teacher organizations, school superintendents, tribal colleges, and others. Oklahoma has 39 tribes and is second in the nation in the number of residents who identify as Native American. Marianne Russin at the International Business Times outlined how the Chickasaw Nation has created a vibrant online community. Beyond thriving Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram accounts, the Chickasaw Nation Video Network has 6 channels and 1,500 videos of oral history, customs, stories, even features on cooking to preserve their 3,000-year-old language by reaching 15,000 tribal members who connect to the nation online. UNESCO categorizes their language as severely endangered, with only 65 native speakers today. Of those speakers, only 4 or 5 are confident conversational speakers under the age of 35. Though the Chickasaw Nation's language is endangered, it is set up for success with more than 57,000 citizens, enough to sustain a radio station broadcast online as well as on FM, a newspaper, and an online presence in social media. The Nez Perce tribe will receive $200,000 for the continued restoration of bighorn sheep populations and their habitat along the Salmon River. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service announced more than $4.6 million in tribal wildlife grants that will fund a wide range of conservation projects by Native American tribes in 17 states. These grants provide technical and financial assistance for development and implementation of projects that benefit fish and wildlife resources and their habitat, including non-game species. And that's another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Nave News Update. I'd like to thank you for joining me and have a grand day.